Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Vanessa and I'm a full stack engineer working here in Stockholm, Sweden. In my last video, I went through some of the positives of working here in Sweden. And to give a balanced perspective, I wanted to go into some of the negatives. Let's jump right into it. If you move to Sweden to work as a software engineer, you are going to pay a lot of taxes. There is a VAT tax on all goods purchased at 25%. And then for groceries and services, the VAT is 12%. There is also a capital gains tax of 30%, so that includes things like stocks and crypto. This leads me to the next thing, which is our taxes are high and our salaries are low. Companies try to make up for this, though, by offering different benefits such as free coffee and fruit, gym memberships, and leasing a car. I wanted to show the average salary of a software engineer in Stockholm. I found Glassdoor and they put the average as 52,000 per month. I think that's a good average because I know that junior engineers make less than that, so that will pull the average down. But I also know engineers making 70 to 80,000. That's obviously not everyone. So I think this is a quite accurate average for the salary. Let's take this salary and go to the Skatteverket website where we can calculate our income after tax. Skatteverket is a tax agency in Sweden. It did not translate to English, so I will translate a little for you. So this is basically just asking if you want to see your income per month after tax. It then asks what year you were born. So I'm born in 92. We will use that. Then asks you to choose where you live. So I live in Stockholm. It then asks for if you're a member of a church, and then it asks you what type of income is it, and it is salary, so we will keep that. It then asks you to put in how much kroner per month. We will use the 52,000. We get 39,887 kroner after tax. We can then take this 39,000 and see how much that would be in USD. So converted, it is 3,634 USD per month after tax. Let's discuss the cost of living. It is very expensive. Rent is expensive. Groceries are expensive. Everything you purchase is expensive. I wanted to do a bit of a cost comparison of buying a MacBook in the US versus in Sweden. I was recently looking at purchasing a MacBook Pro M4 Max, and as you can see, it is 3,199 USD. If we change this to the Swedish website, and we look at the exact same model, it comes out to 45,795 SEK. So if we take that and we currency conversion, it comes out to 4,167 USD. So that is a $1,000 difference purchasing the exact same MacBook in the US versus in Sweden. And if you look, you can see kind of why. So it says including VAT. So that's the 25% tax that I spoke about. It also says statutory fees of approximately 9,234. So that's roughly $800. And these fees are what Apple passes on to the consumer because they're doing business in Sweden. I wanted to take the salary that we calculated earlier at 39,800 and look at some of the available apartments here in Stockholm. So one thing to keep in mind, when it says one room, in the US you would think that's one bedroom, but in Sweden it actually means one room as in living room. So this is actually a studio apartment, and so is this one. So that's something to keep in mind. So I need to go through and quickly filter what I would actually be looking for. So for me personally, I need 2 bedrooms because usually the bedrooms are not big enough to have an office space. So you need at least a small bedroom for an office. And then we want the entire home, apartment, or house. Okay, so I think this is at least what I would look for, and maybe someone who has a small child. But if we look at this apartment, it is 2 bedrooms. So we have primary bedroom, child's bedroom or additional bedroom, living room, kitchen, and bathroom. It also said it is 72 square meters. So if we convert that to square foot for the American viewers, that is 775 square foot. And then we can also convert and see what it would be in USD. So 20,000 465. So it comes out to $1,800 per month. If we think about our salary from earlier, it was $39,800 after tax. So this apartment would cost half of your salary per month. There are, of course, cheaper options. Like just looking at the map, I see this one for $7,000 per month. But if we look, it is a studio and it's only 25 square meters. So it's quite a small apartment. It's also much further from the city center. If we zoom into the city center, we can see that the price continues to go up. Right away, I see this one at $31,000 per month, 24, 41, 29. So it does get increasingly more expensive. So you would definitely need two incomes to be able to comfortably live in the city center. For those who would be interested in purchasing a home in Stockholm, I thought I would show the house prices. So similar to the renters market where apartments are expensive to rent, houses here in Stockholm are also expensive. Like in most cities, we have a housing shortage. I will use a search that I used earlier that looks at houses and apartments in Stockholm. So quickly, I'll just take this first example. This is a 4-bedroom house at $4,495. So in Sweden, you need to put at minimum a 15% down payment. The down payment needed for this home would be 674,250 SEK. If we convert that to USD, comes out to $61,200 that you would need as a down payment for this home. Also, this home is 99 square meters. So again, if we convert, it is 1,000 square foot. So while you may find some cheaper apartments or houses, they generally are much further away from the city center, or perhaps the neighborhood does not have a great reputation. And so you have to factor that in when you are looking at homes. The next thing I want to discuss is the weather. The weather really affects your mood and your productivity when you work in Sweden. When you go to work in the wintertime, it will be dark when you get to work and it will be dark when you go home. There are kind of three things when it comes to the weather. There is one, an increase of elements. There will be more rain, snow, ice, slosh, cold, wind, and there will be two, a decrease in elements, so less sun, and three, it is the length of time that we have bad weather. When I see the weather being discussed online, people often say, oh, but I like the cold. Yes, a lot of people here like the cold, but it's not just the cold, it's all the other elements, the lack of sun, and how long it actually lasts. Out of all of these things, the worst thing about the weather is not having sun. The sun is super important for vitamin D production, but also for your circadian rhythm. Because the sun is so weak, it does not allow our bodies to produce its own vitamin D, and vitamin D is used for so many functions within the body, and one of those being your mood. Essentially, the lighting here always makes the body feel like it is time to go to sleep, and so you were always tired. I remember my first winter here in Sweden. I felt awful to the point that I went to the doctor, and not even the doctor recommended that I take vitamin D. Actually, his only suggestion was if I could not acclimate to the country that I should move. And so while the country is beautiful during winter and the snowfall is absolutely amazing, especially if you come from a climate like me where there is no snow, it is just extremely hard to get used to living without the sun. And for the time that the weather is so bad, at a certain point, you're just like, when will it end? And it won't end until around May. That's when the weather usually stabilizes, and then we have good weather until around September. When you live in Sweden, all of your private information is public. I guess the pros of this is that you literally cannot be doxxed in Sweden because everything is already public. You also get to see your colleagues' salaries, so that can help you kind of negotiate that you want equal pay as your coworker. Everything from your tax returns and your income, property ownership, government documents and communications with the government, court records and company ownership, as well as information such as your full real name, your date of birth, where you live, your phone number, is all available online. The country has this because they believe this leads to better democracy and accountability. And while that may be true, it also makes you feel very uncomfortable. While some people will argue you only need to be worried about this if you are a criminal, I personally don't believe this. I think if you are a blockchain engineer or you work in crypto, it is extremely dangerous to have public information. And also, my first year when I moved here in Sweden, I felt like I had a stalker because a person I had met at a coffee shop kept showing up outside of my apartment, and it was just very strange. One thing that took me a while to get used to, and I know it takes people from other countries who move here time to get used to, is just how slow everything moves. As I mentioned in my last video, Sweden does have a flat hierarchy, but one of the downsides to this is that it takes consensus for literally every decision. Because of this, it slows down progress so much. In my own experience, it's very typical to have 4 or 5 meetings just to come to one conclusion, and this is over a month period. For myself, this has been kind of frustrating at times because it becomes a blocker in your work. In my experience, moving from US where we have top-down management, here it just seems like everything takes way longer than it should. As I mentioned in my previous video, we do have 25 days paid vacation here, and in the summer months, managers are not allowed to decline your vacation requests. Because everyone takes their vacation in June, July, and August, this means that the companies slow down a lot, and not much is really accomplished during this time because you're missing your colleagues or you yourself are on vacation. The most common way to move to Sweden is on a work permit. Typically, you apply for a job and you and the company will do some paperwork with the government, and if approved, the government will issue you a work permit. You can also be laid off during this time, and so if you are laid off, you will have 3 months to find a new role. After the 3 months, you will be asked to leave the country. So while a work permit is the most common way that people move here and bring their family with them, it does not come without challenges and it doesn't always have security. I've heard so many stories of people not being able to find a job after being laid off, and then they are asked to leave the country. The nice thing is, after 4 years, you can apply for permanent residency. And this leads me to my next topic. Because so many people move here on a work permit and they bring their spouse or their partner, a lot of times it is very hard for that spouse or that partner to find a role in Sweden. And so while they have a job and they are able to find work as a software engineer who speaks English, their partner, however, doesn't work in the tech industry. And that's where the issue arises, because in Sweden, you do need to know Swedish outside of the tech industry. Their partners move here and find it really hard to get a job, and this creates not only financial hardships, but also a strain on the relationship. Partners may spend several years learning Swedish just to get an entry-level job at a company. Those are some of the cons of working in Sweden as a software engineer. I hope you found some of it insightful and valuable. I will leave a link below with some material that you can read up on if you are considering moving to Sweden. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.